first of all, thank you for having me. You're a wonderful community, and I wish I could be one of your part of your sisterhood, because it seems like a warm federation, or however you call it, and it's really thank you. I want to ask you, by a show of hand, if you can tell me how many of you have a person with disability in your immediate family, a brother, a husband, a child, a parent. Okay, so we're talking about a very meaningful number of people, and I want to ask you to give a guess. How many people with disabilities are there in Israel? Don't be afraid. 60%. Million people with disabilities in working age in Israel. Let me give you some statistics, and then we'll dig into thank you, because we have a long thank you to give, and you helped us do an enormous job that we do. I told you, million people with disabilities in Israel. There is a very strong correlation between poverty and disability. 260,000 receives benefits from the National Insurance Institute, and 50,000 receive benefits from the IDF. There'll be a quiz afterwards. Okay, so, and when we talk about, I want to speak about young adults. When we speak about young adults, this is what I call, and forgive me for my not so nice language, the bloody 21. Like, there is a huge dropout of services when you finish the age of special ed or regular ed, and there is actually nothing, and we'll get there very soon. So there is a lot of hearts that I heard that many of you have been in Israel. How many of you have been in Israel? Wow, that's very impressive. So please recall, you all been in Jerusalem. Try to imagine yourself. The easiest examples are people who use wheelchair. It's harder to speak about people with psychiatric disabilities. Try to imagine yourself going in Jerusalem, in the old city, and in the villages, in the north and the south. It's still a very inaccessible society, and I'm not so proud to admit it's also not a very welcoming society. There is a lot that should be done in this direction, and we're trying hard, and I'll share it with you. The optimistic side is, we call it the decade of the disabled. Like, there are inspiring group of people with disabilities who are saying we want a new generation of services for new generation of people with disabilities. Some of you may have been in the Center for Independent Living in Tel Aviv, which, thanks to Laura Miller, who is here, and through your federation, have helped us to establish. And you've met maybe Efrat, and maybe you've met Tzipi. Those are young, strong women, smart, inspiring, who are saying we'll make the world a better place. We'll make Tel Aviv and Jaffa a better place for those with disabilities. This is another thing. And the other thing is there is a good legislation in Israel. We've followed your ADA, and we have managed to have a good legislation. 4 lessons that I've learned from my own experience and from my professional experience. One, as I said before, people with disabilities are people with abilities. We tend to forget it, and we need to remember it each time we try to develop a service. 2, we call it YIMFI rather than NIMBY. Yes in my front yard rather than not in my backyard. Because it wasn't very easy for us as a community to raise our hand and say, we have a person with disability in our family, we have a person with disabilities in our society, and usually the numbers are huge, but you don't tend to see them. Those are a hiding minority, and a very silent minority, and we need to see them as part of our community. Did I say I'm passionate about what I do? And if I talk too much, please, Sandy, give me a sign. Okay, so, and the other thing, so I said YIMFI rather than NIMBY, and what else? Services should be in the community. Not far away, not in a nursing home, where we're still finding people who are in their 20s living in nursing homes for the elderly, because there are not good services in the community that support independent living. And this is something that we in Israel Unlimited have made us something that we want to change. And I want to share with you some stories that are part of what you help us do. Do you know what a Center for Independent Living is? Do you know how many are there in the States? Again, give me a guess. 1,000. 1,000 federally funded. And we followed your Centers for Independent Living. And those are centers, you can imagine a JCC run by people with disabilities and give services for people with disabilities. And they're saying nothing about us without us. We're here, we know what is best for us, and we will make it happen. And this is what we do in the Center for Independent Living in Tel Aviv. And to make it not so vague, I want to give you, to share with you a story about Michelle Taylor. Michelle Taylor grew up in New York City. She made Aliyah when she was 17. She got married. She's an ultra-Orthodox lady, and she had 5 kids. During her fifth pregnancy, she became disabled due to epidural injection. It's very rare, and she started using wheelchair, and she had to make a decision those days if to give up or not to give up, not to surrender, and to contribute. We, at the first Center for Independent Living in Jerusalem, we were there for her. We gave her peer counseling and a lot of support. She gave birth to 2 more children. Now she's the mother of 7 children. And now she is the coordinator of a program called Mother to Another. Veterans mothers with disabilities who are mentoring new mothers with disability. This is a completely new program, and we really want you to come aboard and help us expand it in other cities in Israel. But this is the path we're trying to make with people with disabilities. Once they come as a client, and then they become a service giver and a volunteer and part of a brotherhood and a sisterhood. And it's not obvious. Brotherhoods and sisterhoods for people with disabilities, it's something that is not existed. So this is a story I wanted to share with you. And what do? We develop the services, we initiate it. We work with the governments, with wonderful volunteers like Shaked, and we work with people who care, and we create I would love to think it as the most cutting-edge services in Israel, and we try to do it as professional as somewhere else in everywhere else in the world. And then we partner with the government to make it sustainable. We do not want to rely only on donors. We love donors funding, but we want them to help us do the R&D, to do the startup, to develop the idea. And then we always say after 3, it usually takes 5 or 7 years until services are really established and the government can take over. Usually we used to say that they will take everything over. But it's better if the government funds, let's say, 70-80%, and the other 20%, there is social investments. There are creative ideas that make people with disabilities part of the community. That's what we did in the Center for Independent Living in Be'er Sheva. We have established a restaurant run by people with disabilities, and it's right near the Ben Gurion University. So students come and eat there. It's a lovely restaurant. It got a very good reviews at the radio, and they started volunteering. And that's what helped us in Pillar of Defense. Last November? Last November, there were rockets on Be'er Sheva, and the students who were eating in our restaurant, who already knew our people with disability, they said, we're here, we want to help. So we in JDC, with your support, we recruited 30 volunteers who basically took up with their hands people who live in the 4th floor, moved them to the shelter, gave them food, medicine, were there for them. Our friends from Tel Aviv, from the Center from Independent Living Tel Aviv, helped and hosted some of the people from Beersheba until rockets started falling on Tel Aviv. So we used the one in the Galilee. We have one in the Galilee, and they hosted our people from Beersheba. So this is the kinds of things we do. We try to invest in and develop infrastructures that will work in every day, but what good's for every day is very good for emergency situations that unfortunately we need to. There are sometimes we face them. New directions. I want to speak about young adults, and I would really love your coming aboard with us. Brookdale Institute, you're here. Good. Myers-Brookdale Institute, JDC Myers-Brookdale Institute is the leading research organization in Israel. It does applied research in the field. Most of the statistics I quote are from Brookdale. I used to be a researcher there many years ago, so I have a warm heart there for Brookdale. And they found out that 40%, actually, you're on the board of them, right? 39% of young adults who are not working and are not studying are young adults with disabilities. This is shocking. I mean, when you look at Israel, when you look at the young adults who are stuck, basically stuck, most of them are young adults with disabilities. Now, please, many of us, although you're all very beautiful, is this something very specific to Virginia? Yes. But go back to your 20s. Go back to your 20s. Try to think how hard it is to decide whether you're gonna, where will you establish your family? Will you be able to establish a family? What will you study? What are your dreams are? What are your values are? Can you make it? And think how hard it is for young adults with disability. Now, once you have this in the picture, I want to share with you what we found out. It is very relevant to you because it's near the beach. We started a program. We just launched it in September. 2 more minutes? Okay. We just launched it in September. We said that we need to mentor young adults who are really stuck, but we didn't know how severe the picture was. So I'll give you, we did the 15 first, and I'll give you the first one with the example of the first one we've met. His name is David. We met David. He was he is 31 years old. He has Asperger and panic disorder. And the age of 31, it's been 11 years that he haven't left his house. Literally did a step out of his parents' apartment. Now, the parents are devastated. They did not know what to do. We've reached out to them, and our mentor, who is a lovely young woman called Michal went to David. She gained his trust, and more important, she gained his parents' trust. And she said, okay, next time I see you, we're going to the beach together. Now imagine this 31 years old who haven't taken a step out of his house, and the first time he steps out of his house is to the beach in Nahariya. Nahariya is basically sits on the beach. And this was a life-changing for him. So together with Michal, after you can imagine that his horizon have been widened. And now he's going to move to our program called Supported Housing. He's going to leave his parents' house. With our sister division, Tevet, we find work for him. And he have joined in the community, have joined a writing class because it seems it happened to be that he has a very good writing skills, and it was his dream, and he was never able to practice it. This is the thing, we're looking for partners to help. We've created it with 15 young adults. We want to reach out to 500 around Israel to create a model, to write the know-how, of course to evaluate. We measure, and then the government can take it over. This is the kind of innovative things that we're looking forward to make a change. I could talk forever. I see my time is over. So if you have any questions,
My name is Dolores Barton. Avital. I have a son who's 38, who's autistic, profoundly deaf, and intellectually disabled.
If he were in Israel today,
Mhm.
he could have lived in a very big hostel or institution. And this is the situation we want to change. Together with you, to enable people like your son live in dignity in the community and not far away there. And this is one of the challenge, and this is the revolution we want to make. And thank you for sharing
I
it.
started that 30 years ago.
Any more questions? Thank you.
One quick question. How is the funding been from the government?
Yeah,
Are they-
I'm interested in
The partnership I run is the Israel Unlimited. We have a core budget of $500,000 comes from the Ruderman Family Foundation. $500 come from JDC. I assume part of it is from you.
And we have
And-
JFS here. That's
Wonderful. And $500,000 come from the government to our core budget of the partnership. Now the government have been very happy with what we do. So in 2014 they're going to double their share, and it will be 50-50. Yay! We've been working hard for it. There's a lot of budget cuts, and so we're very proud. And the other, and we leverage through the projects. I mean, the core budget goes to the partnership, and we initiate the programs, but then we expand the projects. For example, the Center for Independent Living in Tel Aviv, where Laura Miller, through your federation, helped us establish. So we leverage the core budget funding from 2 million, from 1.5 now, 2 million in 2014, to about $6 million. So every dollar get another $4, and we're working very hard with the government to sustain it. So even though they fund, let's say, with all the leverage, it's about 25% of what we do. At the end, they'll fund the centers completely. I gave the example of the centers, but mentoring young adults, after we'll create the service, we'll understand how the best way it works, we'll use the volunteers, then they'll fund it, and I hope for a lifetime.
Any more questions?
Great.
Thank you.